So we will go in the order of Karen and then Donald. To get started, would you all mind telling us who you are, how you got started in harm reduction in the harm reduction space, and then what that's like then versus it now?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I hope my volume is okay. Sometimes I talk really loud. Okay, so that's just me. So y'all can tell me to tone it down. I'm working on that for 2022. I'm grateful and humble to be here. Thank you, Deshay. Thank you, team. Thank you, Incan. Mr. Davis, I've seen you on different things, but I've not had the pleasure probably saying hey in a long time. So hello.
How you doing?
Blessings on your next journey, your next chapter. I don't know what I can do for you, but if there's anything, please feel free to reach out. To everybody else that's going to be watching, at the end of the day, I know we'll walk away better than we stepped into this. So that's a good thing. My introduction to harm reduction was over 10 years ago, and it was through someone meeting at the time. It was Robert Childs, who was the executive director of North Carolina Harm Reduction at that time. And so through someone meeting him, and then I got connected and then started doing some outreach stuff for them. Didn't know a lot about the term harm reduction. Apparently most people have been doing harm reduction all their life. It's just never been called that or had an understanding of that. And to kind of keep it short, how has things changed? Well, I think things have changed because definitely there are more people doing it or some form of it. A little bit more funding, a little bit more in places, and we have to keep that in mind, in places, more understanding, more partnerships. And it's been a lot of good. A lot of lives have been saved through harm reduction. A lot of connections have been made, but there's also been a lot of loss, but it hasn't been lost without a cause or in vain. So that's all I have for that.
Thank you. And same question, Mr. Dole. What started your journey in harm reduction, and how would you compare that then to now?
Well, my journey started back in 1997. I've been around a while. And Karen, I remember when Thelma Wright was the executive director before Robert Childs. So that's been a while. And but I got in by a friend of mine told me about an outreach job at an HIV clinic in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I went ahead and took the job, and it was an adventure, and it's been an adventure for the last 25 years. And back then, the Blacks that were in harm reduction in the leadership roles were like Harry Simpson, the late Harry Simpson from Detroit, Thelma Wright, Amani Woods, and then it kind of stopped there. And we had outreach roles running the syringe exchange, but leadership roles were kind of lax for people of color. Today, we have more people of color, but I still think it's lacking in the number. We have people, Mark Jenkins in Connecticut, Deborah Stanley in Indiana, myself, and maybe 15 more people of color who are in leadership roles in harm reduction. So it is changing. It's a slow process, but I've seen change, and we keep working at it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. 1997. Oh, 10 years and 1997. I just got started in this field. I'm still a baby. I want to say I started back in 2018. I'm in Iowa, and it's Iowa. So harm reduction wasn't really, it was not super discussed in Iowa, and we kind of did some work at the clinic that I was working at, trying to provide small materials that we can. We can't give out too many things. At the time they didn't have an approved syringe service law, so we just handed out whatever we could. And then with there not being many Black people in Iowa, it was like, well, we don't really need to focus on this population. We're really focused on the opioid crisis. That's really where our attention's going. And the more I've engaged with the work, the more I've been like, okay, Black people are heavily impacted by everything. And yet it's still kind of like a glaze over, like, well, the data says that. Good, we've got data. I'll leave that there. But yeah, a lot of changes that I'm looking forward to seeing. And so that kind of brings on my next question. So the war on drugs has been has a racially charged history of incarcerating the BIPOC community. So that's people of color, Black and Indigenous people. And yet these communities continue to be underserved. As I'd mentioned, we see the data, we know that the help is needed, but they're still underserved. What do you believe has been the leading cause for harm reduction spaces being predominantly white? And again, we'll start with Karen.
You get to start me again? Wow, what pleasure. You know, I've thought about these questions ever since you sent them to me, and I was like, this is gonna be hard. But the problem is one of them is funding. Being able to secure the funds needed to do harm reduction work. And also, I just get tired sometimes of saying stigma. It's because I think we're past that point now. It's just a community's unwillingness to give back to itself and people's denial of what's really going on and how it's affecting people and making it a priority. We deal with incarceration, and then people name it justice work, and then people get fired up, they get out there and they march and, they boycott and they do all of this. And then we go in and we say, okay, but the drug, those that use drugs, substance use disorder, whatever words you want to put on it, people of color, indigenous people. And then somebody goes, no, wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. Oh, all right now. Now we got a lot going on right here. We can talk about that later. Look, we let's just not say that now. We want to just keep the focus on, we're marching right now. Let's keep the focus on that. Right now we're in the boycott, so let's keep the focus on that. We're in everything. We've been in everything. We continue to be in everything, even when they craft the laws. The original, when it goes to how it protects people in harm reduction, and then somewhere it starts getting watered down a little bit, and then it just comes out of something. And then I was going to say, unfortunately, thank goodness we have something. It is not what the original people, I'm sure, intended, but we got something. And for that, we're very grateful, but we need more. But that's a lot of times what actually happens. And we still deal with the, I'm a person of faith. Let me put that out there for everybody. I think I'm jumping on them. The other side of naming the sin. And unfortunately, when we name the sin, again, we push from the bottom and it gets right up there in the top. So we move it to the back.
Okay. I can see that. I could definitely see, like you've mentioned, we have this one thing where it all kind of intersects, but it's like, well, we don't really want to talk about the intersections. We just want to talk about this one piece because it's the easiest to digest. So same question for you, Mr. Donald. What do you think, why do you think that the harm reduction space is predominantly white, despite, there being this history of incarcerating BIPOC communities for substance use?
Well, I really think that, and looking at it from a perspective of, I'm in recovery myself. I've been in recovery 30 years, and and working in harm reduction and going into communities of color, I find that there are a lot of people in those communities who are in denial about the opioid epidemic and drugs today. We do expanded naloxone distribution here in Louisville, and we go into the west end of Louisville, which is predominantly people of color. And a lot of them are in denial. Oh, I don't need that. I don't need Narcan. I don't do that. I don't know anybody that does that. And it doesn't affect me. because, you know, they're looking at the fact that they don't use, but they're, you know, they're in denial about the nephew or the brother or the cousin that uses. And, you know, working and trying to look at people and hire people of color, that's kind of hard also because, you know, we're trying to hire someone to replace me, and I would prefer hiring a person of color, but, you know, you don't get a whole lot of resumes that, you know, that represent that population and that community. So, and then, you know, when I started in harm reduction, I found that they were looking at the neighborhoods that they were going into, the communities or going into like in Ann Arbor and like here in Louisville, they weren't strong communities of color. They were bypassed until just recently in the last couple of years, where we've started working more in those communities. So I think that we're in denial about the fact that we have an issue and we have a big problem with drugs. I was meeting with a city council person here, and a gentleman called her and talking about, you know, violence and gang violence and things. And she was trying to talk to him about, well, you know, the opioid epidemic and the drug epidemic has a big, you know, plays a big part in that. And he was in total denial. He said, no, it's just gangs. And the gang, you know, yeah, and this was a person of color. And he says, no, it's gangs. And he wanted to argue with her about that, you know, and it says it's not the drugs, but in those communities, we have a list of bootleg and fake pills that are going around in those communities. And, you know, the young people of color are buying those pills and they're taking them and they're overdosing. So I think the denial in our community has a lot to do with, you know, why harm reduction is so white, you know? Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, yeah. The internal struggle as well as the external struggle. So yeah, the internal pushback is definitely a big part of that from what I can see. And Jesse Bennett, who's currently the ED of the North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition, has this amazing presentation that goes over the history of the war on drugs. And it really kind of highlights how substances have existed within communities and that they've been using them. And in the moment, and it's the one example was with the opioid dens back in I want to say it was like the 20s or the 30s. The moment white women were having problems with trying to fight substance use disorder or anything else related to the opioid dens, it was like, oh, I mean, the opium dens, it's like, well, this is now an issue. We're going to prosecute the people who introduced it. We're going to get help for those who are being affected by it that are not a part of that community. Because surely it's just a part of who you are and we should punish you for that. And so that really makes it difficult. It's like with things making marijuana legalized and opening up all these dispensaries, but we still have communities of color that have been incarcerated for having or distributing marijuana. That definitely plays a role. I have so many thoughts on this. I'm trying to pick them, but they're all kind of fighting each other. But that stigma piece is also definitely a big part of it. When we look at least North Carolina, our syringe service law, for Black people who may not be using syringes, because we don't like syringes necessarily, typically preferring to take or smoke or snort their substances, seeing syringe service laws like, oh, that's not for me. That's not something that I really need to access. It doesn't really make sense for me to go there, despite them offering multiple other services. So with that stigma, that begs the question, is there anything unique about substance use stigma in the Black community compared to other communities? And we'll start in reverse order. That way we can give Karen a little time. So Mr. Donald, would you mind going?
Well, repeat that again, the question.
So the question is there anything unique about the stigma affecting the Black community and substance use compared to other communities?
Yeah, like I said, still in the community of color, we're still in denial. That's one of the main things. But it's I don't think it's any different. You still have people in the white community who are in denial. about, about the substances in their communities. They live in the suburbs and they don't think that it's in the suburbs. Oh, you got to go to the inner city for that, and it's right there. When you have a doctor's wife coming to you and asking you, can you do syringe exchange at her house for her and her friends, because, and she's white, and said, no, I can't come to your house. You and your friends have to come here, so it's denied on both ends. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Karen, what are your thoughts about the uniqueness of the stigmas in the Black community and substance use?
Same question. I apologize. I'm gonna turn it off. If we're talking about the uniqueness of it, I agree. I don't know that anything's unique. It's amazing that it's amazing we still having the same generational conversations. And how slow the needle must move. But I don't think it's unique. I think some of it is designed that way. Sometimes by ourselves, you know what I'm saying? Again, like you said, when we say needle exchange, well, I don't need needle exchange because I'm not doing needles. I'm not injecting, so I don't need to go to the needle exchange, even though they have the Narcan, even though they have the fentanyl test strips, even though they can connect me with community services. I don't need that. Change will come. Again, change will come.
I have to say, oh yeah, Mr. Donald, go ahead.
Can I say something? I want to kind of piggyback on what she was saying, is that, when they say needle exchange, instead of saying harm reduction, and as soon as they say needle exchange, all the red flags come up with people, and they don't want needles, or you're just giving out needles. And if you explain what harm reduction is, all the benefits and the programs that are involved in harm reduction, then that would help change people's viewpoint of it.
Yeah, definitely agree. Because I remember I was actually talking to Michelle, and she was showing me how to use fentanyl test strips for non-injected substances, and I was like, that's a thing. Like you can do that, and you can, but people don't necessarily know how to do that. They don't necessarily know that it's accessible to them or that it's even necessary. Like you said, if we're not having those conversations, no one's really talking about fentanyl, and within the Black community, fentanyl being laced into their substances, because it's like, well, I'm not really injecting, I don't have to worry about that. But that's not necessarily the case. So definitely, I feel like in increasing the scope of how we provide those services, like you said, not just saying needle exchange, not just saying syringe service, but saying harm reduction, and expanding what that definition is really important. But then we were also talking a bit about some of the need for change. Like, we've been having these conversations over and over again. There's still some denial, there's still pushback, there's still stigma. And one of my favorite quotes is from Frederick Hayes, and he says, "You can't make people like change, just make people feel less threatened by it." And so I'm curious to know, like, what are some of those changes? Like, we've already mentioned expanding the word beyond just syringe service or needle exchange, but what are some other changes that need to happen in order to effectively engage the Black communities with harm reduction? And I will pass that over to Karen.
It's a lot of things that need to happen. Those that work in harm reduction have been doing it for a while. You learn how to change your conversations when you're talking to people. Like I said, some people can aspire to syringe exchange services. You can call it needle exchange. You can call it harm reduction. Introducing the fentanyl test strips, other community connections, locations, partnerships. I think, again, it's forever changing. When you do the work, you just kind of have to, as you grow, and you grow in grace, you grow in mentorship and leadership and partnerships, you just learn, you kind of roll with the punches. What we're going to have to do again is or where we're able to is increase our partnerships and the conversations we're having with those partners and asking those partners to do more. We need you to be more vocal. We need you to stand with us a little bit more. We're gonna have to start a little bit younger because a lot of the individuals that we're seeing now are starting really young. So we're gonna have to go there. We're gonna have to go there with the younger ones. I think we're gonna have to not spend so much time on the churches and go to the organizations in the churches where they've lost the family members, where they're dealing with these issues themselves. We're gonna have to go to the missionary circle. We're gonna have to go talk to the trustee and stop talking to the pastor. And for the pastors, y'all know I love you. You know, y'all know I love you. It ain't about that. But I think we're gonna have to, it's time to move on. As old folks say, we're gonna move on up a little higher. And like I said, we're gonna stop talking to the pastor. We're gonna go to the people. And we're gonna keep taking it to the people. And we're gonna keep bringing the people out till something changes. It has to change. We are losing way too many people and we have stuff available. We've got to push the information because it's so necessary. We cannot keep allowing people to be the barriers to people losing their lives. It's way too important now. It's always been important, but we got to get fired up again. You know, every moment, every time we get a little weak, we got to get fired up again because someone needs us and we know that it makes a difference. In the communities of color, we got to, we just got to expect more. We just not gonna keep letting you say it don't exist because it does exist. And we're gonna invite everybody to the table. We're gonna reset the table and we're gonna invite everybody to the table because that's part of the problem. Even in the LGBT community, a lot of times we're not focusing or having conversations with people because we're just in the community of color. And I hope I'm saying that right so folks get what I'm saying. We're gonna make a seat at the table.
Okay. I think I get that. Like actually having a seat at the whole table, not just having little subsection tables and being like, well, this is your table. Don't go sit at the main table.
No, we're gonna keep. It's like the puzzle. We're gonna keep putting. We're creating a new puzzle, and we'll let you know where it start, where it ends. We're gonna start it, and we're just gonna keep adding pieces, and we're gonna make them fit.
Okay. I like that. Just expanding instead of always trying to make something new, reinventing the wheel.
Leave anyone out. Again, we have conversations even in communities of color, and we know who gets left out of those conversations. And we know why they get left out of those conversations.
Thank you. Ooh, those conversations. I have a thought on those conversations, but I'll follow up on that after Donald gives his feedback. So what are some changes that you think are kind of pertinent to making that experience and really engaging the Black community with harm reduction?
I really do feel like Karen and education, and, bypassing the pastor and going to the other groups in the church. And I say that from experience of having to deal with pastors and wanting to just talk about HIV in offering testing. And I did that once, and a pastor, at this meeting, he says, well, the gays are trying to take over the church. I said, I wasn't talking about gays taking over the church. I'm talking about HIV in the Black community, and you have to look at, where they're coming from. And then you have to look at where you want to take them and you want them to go. You want them to, bypass, sexual orientation and look at the fact that you have a epidemic of HIV in your community, and you're not voicing anything on it. You're not saying anything about it. And you have to educate them, like at that same meeting, at the end of the meeting, this pastor came up to me on my way out. He says, if I let you come to my church, what scripture would you use? And I told him, I said, I wouldn't. He said, why? I said, I'm not here to save their souls. That's your job. I'm here to save their lives. And for them to understand what you're trying to do is to educate people about what's going on in the community and get them to see that you want to come into the community and you're going to continue to come. And this is one thing that's, about the Black community. If you say you're going to come and do something in the community and you come one time and don't come back again, they don't trust you. They have no faith in you. But if you'd say, I'm going to be there every Thursday, giving these services, HIV and hepatitis C testing, case management if I need it. We have iPads to get a person into do a telemedicine and get them into an MAT program. If you're offering all of this and you come back on a consistent basis, I'll be there every Thursday at 11 o'clock. And then they're going to look at you and they're going to say, well, damn, they really mean what they say. And they want to make some changes in the community. And you go to community board meetings, and this is outside of the church, but you go to the community board meetings in the Black community and educate. And if you're not educated, then you're, about what's going on, then you're going to be against it because you've heard all of these negative views on it. But if you're educated and you're told everything that happens, because most of the time when they talk about surrender change, like I said earlier, they say surrender change, they don't say harm reduction. And you've got to give that, and then you have to explain exactly what harm reduction is and how it can benefit the community.
Okay, yeah. With the idea of having those conversations, also, I just love the idea that the gays are trying to take over the church. Like, if there's anything I'm trying to take over, it's the Krispy Kreme. It's not the church. But with having those,
but Deshae, I did find scripture. I found scripture to use when I went to his church, and I can't remember which one it is, but it's like when Jesus was in this village and he was preaching and he was in this house and they had a man who was palsied and they were trying to get him in, but there was too many people, and they lifted his bed up to the top of the house and cut a hole in it and lowered the bed into it, and that's, what does it do? What does that mean? It takes a village. It takes a village. And you get that piece of scripture across to them, and then they start thinking about, oh, maybe he's right. You know what I'm saying? So it just depends on what you say, how you deliver it, and how much you give them, how much information you give them. And you have to give them all the information. You just can't piecemeal it out to them.
Yeah. And that's like, it is. And, sometimes you run into that a lot. Like I said, if you do go and talk, sometimes they don't want to just have a conversation. They try to get you on, you want to have this Bible trilogy, and see what you know and stuff like that. And sometimes I'm so wrong to be right. I just be like, you want to go to the well? You want to have a conversation at the well? And then, it's like, well, maybe we can let you have a flyer or something, I'm like, thank you, thank you for that, because you don't want to go to the well where we can find out a whole lot of things about your husbands. That's how you set that conversation down about the gays taking over the church. I wish we would take over the church. Good Lord, it'd be a lot prettier in here and the music be a lot better, because them notes last week were so flat. And I mean, Mother was trying, but her throat was dry. Okay, we'd have had her some juice. You could use some help up in here, and I see you asking for help, but let me do the first thing first, and then I'm gonna help you with that second part later. I hear your cry for help, Pastor. I hear your cry. You do need the gays to take over this church. Okay. I know where you're coming from. Just love them, and that's what we're here to do. Just love on them. Love on them.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We'll just come in and sprinkle some dust around, do a little redecorate.
Yeah, get this carpet up.
But I think you both brought up a really interesting point about having those conversations. When I was growing up, and I don't know how many other people can attest to this, but when I was growing up, I had aunts and uncles who may have been using substances. I had grandparents who were using substances. My mom tells me, she's like, I grew up in a household where my parents did shrooms and weed regularly. And I was like, oh, girl. And so that's just like a conversation that she had with her parents, and that was her relationship with it. But then as I grew up, our conversations were, don't talk about drugs, don't look at drugs, don't think about drugs, no drugs. I remember telling her, hey, I'm finishing up my social work class and I have to do I'm doing one of the courses on substance use. And she was like, oh, what got you into that, Shay? Is there something you want to tell me? So you out here using substances now? And so I kind of grew up with this idea that I should be ducking and dodging anything related to substance use. Even when I was taking psychology courses and you talk about how substances affect the brain, I learned it and then I pushed it out. So once I finally got to a place where I was able to have those conversations without feeling like someone's breathing down my neck, or like I don't have all this history of stigma and denial about substance use existing in the community, turn a blind eye, that way it doesn't exist. That really pushes the needs that, like y'all were both saying, having those conversations in certain locations, but also having them earlier and really just being accepting and understanding that it is here and it's not going anywhere just because you look away from it. And that brings up another question that we received in the chat from Ashley Jared. Thank you so much for being here. Do you have any guidance for addressing the denial within populations in regards to the need for harm reduction? How do we get the conversation started without it backfiring or offending and thus shutting down interest in using harm reduction services? And I'll pass that to Mr. Donald if you're willing to go.
I think you start the conversation in communities of color with some data, letting people know just how many people are overdosing and dying, how it's affecting the neighborhoods, the economy, syringes on the street. And you start looking at that and you give them some data about how many people have died in their neighborhood. And when you have data that shows that a 16-year-old kid bought what he thought was a Percocet on the street and overdosed and died, and they start hearing that, then they say, well, why is that happening? And then they start asking questions about why it's happening, where is it happening? And then continuously giving them that information and answering the questions that they ask when they ask them, and following up on anything that you can't answer. You don't want to leave them hanging on a question and you say, well, I'll get back with you, and then never go back with the answer. So, it's still all about education and bringing people together to look at, it's the issue that it is. There's a lot of gun violence here in Louisville, and at one time they were having, different meetings about the gun violence, and sometimes it's slowed down a little bit, but the gun violence is still there, so you can't slow up or stop talking about what's going on in your community as long as it's continuing to go on.
Yeah. What were your thoughts, Karen?
Sometimes communities are different. I would see who you could get to come to the table to kind of have a feel on where your opposition may be at and what that may be. Because then you can sometimes already have the answer to somebody who's going to come negative. You already know what their problem's going to be and you can address that. It's also good to have friends or family who will come and tell their story. The mother who's lost her child, it's hard to sit there and talk junk to somebody's mama when she's lost her child. And she, telling you her pain and she telling you her real truth. And you have data and stuff to back up how it helps. If you can get organizations that are working with the gangs and stuff like that and see how you can bring in harm reduction and work together in some kind of partnership, even if it's like a one-time event, you'd like to do it more. But sometimes if they have an event, if you can have information there, get a chance to talk to some people. But like I said, different communities work different. You'll find allies and champions. Sometimes you have to look really hard, but you also have to know your opposition too.
Okay, so knowing the opposition, really engaging the people who you need to hear it, and like you said, showing up regularly, having that information available and responding in a timely manner. I think what's really good about that is that with facts, with the idea that, you know, it's like, oh, well, facts are facts, but they're flexible, sure. But like Donald was saying, it's still there. Even as that fact starts to change, as long as the fact is still there, even if it does change by a couple of degrees or percentages, it's still there. And so being able to say, you know, even if you're not wanting to listen to it today, even if it's not something that you want to hear tomorrow, I'll still be here, and so will this fact. And if you have questions about that, when you're ready to address that, because it's not going anywhere until someone addresses it, I'm here. I'm still here as a resource. So I think definitely presenting yourself as a pillar of information and someone who's like, I'm just here to get you the information that you need. I'm here with the data. I'm here to listen to your story and to help spread it if you want. I think it's a really important conversation to have, or a nice way to present yourself in those conversations. Oh, let's see. I just got another question. Can you give them scenarios they're familiar with, and if they agree, then point out how that falls under harm reduction? Oh, yeah. I like that idea. Really talking about how harm reduction is more than just like we've been talking about thus far. It's more than just syringes. It's more than just fentanyl test strips. Sometimes it's checking up on a friend who you know uses. Sometimes it's I mean, all the time is putting on a seatbelt. Like, that's a form of harm reduction. Harm reduction is so much more than just this one thing, this one image that we have painted.
It always is. It's always, and then a lot of times growing up, you didn't always, sometimes when you saw people who were using substances, it was not their finest hour. Let's put it like that. But when you saw another group of people using substances, they were always having fun. Case in point, when you see pictures of, you know, back in the 70s, the 80s, crack and all of that, you know, it was always, you know, I always think of New Jack City, you know, one of the better films out there. If you haven't seen it, you know, look at New Jack City, right? And you see all that went with that. But then when you see the other side, you know, and you see the lines of cocaine and it's all fun, it's good, everybody's having a good time, you know, they feeling the goodness of it, you know, the houses, the cars and all of that. So that's a lot of times what's been portrayed, and that's how people feel. Like I don't want to say they've not seen anything good. They've not seen people maintain where the level of maintenance has been different for people of color than it is for non-people of color. And that brings a lot more into it too. The value of property, where they're, again, the economics of it. And then the rate and way of recovery, you know, who could get 2 months, 3 months, and then, you know, Binky, you know, goes off and be the CEO after going to a recovery program, treatment center, you know, blah, blah, blah. And again, you have to change the picture. Sometimes you have to take in a different picture and say, yeah, I know you used to seeing this right here, but wow, got one for you right here. You know, looks the same, don't it? Same name, same situation. And it usually sometimes takes people aback because they're not used to seeing that. But it does have an effect, and it does work on people.
Yeah, like singing what is it, that one song? Ooh, I don't know the name of this band. I think it's Nickelback. Rock star. Substance use is viewed as being a rock star. If you're a white man with this long, luscious hair and you can play an instrument, but substance use in the Black community, you are a thug, or you're a gangster. It's the associations with it, or they, like you said, they seems very different compared to some other thoughts behind that. What were your thoughts, Mr. Donald? Oh, you're muted though, by the way. Oh.
I'm sorry, I was muted. My bad. I don't know. I kind of I agree with Karen about, how in some instances substance use was glamorized. You know, I'm sure I'm the oldest person on this call, so I remember back at Studio 54 and all that other stuff. How cocaine was glamorized, and smoking weed was glamorized, and whatever drugs, back in the 70s, the drugs that were the prescription drugs that were used were glamorized. All of it was glamorized until you got into the community where people were really using drugs, and you'll see the people out there on the corner, asking for spare change or money, or running into a bodega and stealing something so they can go sell it. And that was the time when where it's really not glamorized, and where it's real, and people are suffering because of that. And like Karen was talking about, someone that had a drug dealer, or someone who they get busted with an ounce of cocaine and get probation or a year in jail, and a person who has 2 or 3 rocks of crack ended up, and they still might be in jail from the 70s today. So you have to look at that, and you have to look at how drugs have been glamorized in the past. And you look at the movies from the 70s and the 80s, and when it comes to drugs, and if drugs are in there, it's glamorized. So and some people still live by that, like Scarface, say hello to my little friend, you know what I mean? And that was glamorized. I mean, I see people with t-shirts of Tony Montana today, and so drugs have been glamorized in some communities, and it's still glamorized in those same communities, and they are the hardest hit communities out there. So we have to look at and work at trying to take away that glamour from drug use, drug dealers, and let people look at what's really happening in the community. It's not glamorous.
Not at all.
But
again, I was thinking the same thing. Say hello to my little friend. Everybody knows that one, right?
Yeah.
Everybody know that one. But
yeah.
in the song that we learned, I remember, was it Slick Rick? Dave the dope fiend, don't know the meaning of water, no soap,
Oh yeah.
And folks sang that thing, and it lived for folks. Even if you probably play it now, folks, they be like getting it. Everybody knows, that hook, before George Floyd, you had NWA talk about it. Spike did a movie about it. Again, these things have been with us down through the generations, and we're still having the same conversation, and we're still trying to get people respect and the dignity that they deserve. That's what it comes down to. Relationships with people, however small that time may be or long that time may be. But again, fighting for people's rights to have the same respect and dignity. Drugs do have a downside, for whatever glamour that it holds, and we get that. But there is, a downside. These are actual people, faces, families that are deeply affected, communities that are deeply hurt. You can't have the violence without having the drugs. You can't have the sex work without having the drugs. You can't, it goes hand in hand, and until we stop excluding people. Even again, when talking about, like Mr. Davis said, the HIV part. What did that have to do with the gay people? You know, why did that even come up? He came to talk about HIV and AIDS, but then someone, for whatever reason, had to figure out how to keep somebody from coming to the table, right? We got to blame somebody. We got to leave somebody out. We can't bring everybody in. It ain't happening for everybody. You know, that's too much. And we find ourselves still in those places, and we still trying to fix it. And we will, you know, it's going to take a little bit longer, but we will.
I really like that, the expression that, you know, playing the blame game keeps people from sitting at the table, because if it's your fault, you don't get a seat, and you sure as shit don't get a plate. So my question is, or my next question is, where is this damn table? We've talked about expanding the table. We've talked about sometimes it's having to make the table from scratch, but where are the places in our communities that we need to be having these table conversations? And I love that you were both really specific about it, especially Karen, when you talked about don't just address the pastor, go to one of the groups. You need to be talking to the ushers, or it's like, okay, that really helps. I feel like that really helps create an idea of where we can set up a table or where those tables should be at. So yes, tell us, where is the table so I can grab my seat?
Well, the first table is right here, and you have a seat. So the table has already started, and we will take the table with us. We take the table with our hearts, and we take the table on our back and our hands and our feet, and we take the table, we put it down. Wherever we go, there's the table, and people will come, and we will continue to invite people, because that's the only way. There's no specific, because everybody's different. You know, every community is different. The people that you have working in those communities are different, but we just have to be the table. You know, we continue to be the table. The ones that have gone before us that started this work, that a lot of people don't know about. You know, before it got to this kind of like that glamorous life now, harm reduction. The people that was doing it long before there was any kind of funding. The people who were, you know, making sure their friends had, you know, clean needles. The people who've been there before you had Narcan, bringing people back. So we always hold a space for that was left to us, and we cherish that, and we continue to carry it on. And when we're no longer here physically, we have to believe in that we've done enough that it will continue. That's how the table keeps going. It will continue. When I'm no longer here, it will continue. Hopefully, folks won't be having this conversation, but if they are, we've already made sure that they have something to work with by being at the table today, that we will leave something behind for them to pull from.
I actually really like that the idea that the table is not, you know, bolted down in one spot. It moves.
No.
The community is the table. Wherever the community
Right.
is and whatever the community is doing, that's where the table needs to be at. If it's a folding table, so be it.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts, Mr. Donald?
I have to agree with Karen. The table is wherever you take it, and wherever you go, whatever work you're doing, and it's harm reduction work, you're taking the table and you're having people sit at the table with you. If it's only for 5 or 10 minutes, at least you have their attention for 5 or 10 minutes, and you're talking about harm reduction. And some people get tired. You know, they used to get tired of me talking about harm reduction. You know, but I always went back. I had a folding table, you know, and where I went, my table went. And I, you know, in the Black community, you know, other than the church, you go to the barbershops and beauty salons, you know, while you waiting on a shave, you sit there and talk, you know. And if you're dropping off condoms at a beauty salon, you sit there and talk with the ladies about, you know, about harm reduction. And, you know, wherever you go, that's where the table is. And Karen said it right. I mean, the table's already been set. All we have to do is just keep filling it up. Just keep offering seats to people at the table, and they'll take those seats and they'll listen.
Okay. It gets me thinking about, like, where are some places that I'm going at where I could be having these conversations. And like you said, the barbershop is a great one. Oh,
And
Brings a
it's
lot.
Can I
not
say this?
it's so
You
much
could,
more. I'm sorry, Mr. Davis, go ahead.
you can be wearing some swag, something with harm reduction on it, something about Narcan or something on it, and someone's going to ask you about it. You know, what is that? And that they just pull their seat up to the table. And you can be in a Starbucks, in a grocery store, and we have T-shirts that say, "I can Narcan, can you?" And they'll say, "Well, what is Narcan?" And you got them. If it's only a 5 minutes conversation, they're leaving there with thoughts on their mind about what you're doing and how they can, how, if they have to use it, and how they can get some. So you're the table. You're the bearer of the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's different. Like I said, with just today, we're leaving a mark. We're expanding the table because at least we're talking about it. And we have different voices at the table that will already in communities, or will expand on their conversation in the community. Just doing what they're doing is harm reduction. It's more than just the needle piece. Okay, it's more than the syringe exchange piece. It's all this, like I heard you say, voting. It's about the voting. It's about sometimes the march. It's sometimes about the conversation with a friend. It's sometimes about learning another resource in your community. It's sometimes about saying, you know what, I'm in an organization, but I don't think we've ever had anyone come in and talk to us about harm reduction. I know somebody. I'm gonna call them and see if I can get them on the phone, or if I can't get them here, if I can't get them on Zoom. Now we're doing Zoom. I'm asking them to send me some information, and I'm gonna post it in my community board. I'm gonna post it up in my church, at least about Narcan and where we can get it. I'm gonna work with my community organizations, my cheerleading team, my step team, my brother in the band, my frat brother, my sorority sister, the people I go at the wine store, I always go in there and chat with them, whatever. I'm gonna ask them, you know what I'm saying? Maybe we can have enough chat. Maybe they'll be willing to put a box at the counter, right? Free to anybody that comes in. Work at the club, go to the club, ask the club. I know they got condoms in most clubs, but hey, would y'all have Narcan at the club? If you don't have Narcan, let's get it, and maybe we can put it out somewhere. It's okay to put it out. It's not, whatever the state say or whatever, you can figure out to have a display free to anyone that needs it, or where they can get it at. Like I said, anytime you do an event, can you invite someone for harm reduction? Black History Month, let's put something together. Black History Month. I'm gonna say this again. Thank you, Martin. Bless you, Rosa, Harriet, and all y'all. But I need to hear from the mother of the church. I need mother to take the podium, and I need to hear from mother of the church, because she done seen some things and she done lived through some stuff. And then I need to have on career day, we need to have someone for harm reduction at career day. It's not about the same ones over and over again. We need to mix it up, but there are all of these possibilities, opportunities. My dream, one day we're going to be able to actually go to a concert, and the first thing they're going to talk about when they tell us what city we in is, we got Narcan back in the back, grab y'all some before y'all leave. I mean, we got celebrities passing away, and I know that there have been 2 conversations that I've seen. I know, well, I ain't gonna give them a shout out, but it's a couple of TV shows. They actually did talk about the fentanyl thing after the death of Michael K. And they touched on it a little bit, but we need more of those people to step up. We need more conversations from celebrities, not just a blurb, not just, I'm gonna love you long time. We need them talking about Narcan. We need them talking about syringe exchange services. That's it. I can go on forever and ever, but I apologize. But thank everyone for what they're doing today to advance the conversation and be part of the table of harm reduction.
What I absolutely love about that is that I find myself doing it in a non-special way, really demystifying the sorcery behind harm reduction. My mom's a school teacher, so she'll be working with kids, or she'll be like working with other teachers and staff. And of course I come in and I'm helping her out with her class, like putting something up in her classroom. And later on the teacher will be like, what did your son do? What does he do? What does he do for work? And she's like, oh, he does HIV, Hep C education and harm reduction education. And they're like, oh, what is that? And I've had that conversation with my mom, and I've had that conversation with my sister and with my brother. And so whenever anyone asks them about it, which somehow it ends up coming up in conversation, they're able to tell and give more details about that. And before I was like, oh my gosh, I'm stressed. Y'all out here talking about my work. Y'all know my work stressed me out. Don't talk about my work when I'm not present. But that's a great way to build that that rapport and have those conversations and at least start something. So I really did like that. Thank you. Thank you both for that answer.
Understanding even when you might not be there.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, which actually, thank you, Matthew, for doing that. We've got a couple more questions left, but if anyone has any questions that they'd like to ask, please feel free to add them in the chat. Because we've got about 30 minutes left, but I want to give everyone the opportunity to you know, get some questions answered. Okay, ooh, woo. So we continue. My next question is kind of more personal for me. And that is, what advice do you have for young Black people looking to engage in harm reduction or in harm reduction spaces? What advice would you give me and my peers?
What advice? I would, I guess, I don't know. I guess I would tell people, you know, let people know that you have to be empathetic. You have to be understanding. You have to be able to not be judgmental, you know, because, you know, addiction, it doesn't have any glasses on. It'll strike anybody. And with harm reduction, I don't know, it's kind of hard. I mean, you give them the advice that, you know, I didn't get any advice when I came in. I came in and they just told me to go ahead and do what I got to do. They told me what to do and we did it, you know, and you learned as you went. And over the years, you learn how to be compassionate and understanding and empathetic. And you learn how to understand addiction. And I'm a believer that some of the best harm reductionists are people who are in recovery or know about addiction. You know, and the majority of the people that are in harm reduction are people who are in recovery, or they may still be using, but they use a harm reduction approach to it. So I just think that giving them the advice of being compassionate, empathetic, understanding, and have a will to help other people, you know, that's the best information I can give them, you know. Yeah.
I would say this one for me is personal. Be respectful, but you're gonna have to learn how to balance your love, because sometimes you want things for people that, like in life, that it's not what they want. And that's the thing about harm reduction. You have to listen to what people tell you, and respect that. And along the way, you'll lose people. And you've loved them, they've loved you, and you lose them. And it's just like any other loss, it hurts. And you have to balance that, because you have to continue on with the work that you do, knowing that you're going to lose people along the way, no matter how good you are. And but you have to keep going. And some days it can be hard. Some weeks can be really, really rough. And one of the things that I don't know about Mr. Davis, because he's got more time in this area than I do. Sometimes it's people you've known for a long time, you've gotten close to them for whatever reason, and you can't show up to a service or something because, you know, sometimes families are not in that place where the denial is there, and you don't want to set out more rumors with people's business, because again, this is personal business, and that sometimes hurts. And sometimes it's multiple people, and you know, you've seen the progress or you've seen their life change, and addiction still ends up, you know, being the leader of the reason that they've passed away. So I think respect at every level, and you have to learn it. You have to grow with it. It's just not going to be there, because things change so quickly, and everybody's different, and you want to give them that respect to be who they are. And like I said, just balancing that love, because boundaries, you have to set boundaries now, even with yourself, you know.
I'm not too good with that last one, self boundaries. Ooh. I'm in the idea that, you know, I'm young, it's fine. If I just keep working until I break my body, something will happen at some point. But I really appreciate the idea that I need to have boundaries. And the advice, really, that change happens when it's ready to happen, and you can just sort of be there in those spots when you can, when they allow you to. And it's a heavy burden to shoulder, but again, not carry, shoulder with other people. So especially developing those relationships and those connections with people who are experiencing it or people who have, that way we can all kind of create that community and have that support system there.
Yeah, create some new swag. We need some new swag. We need a whole branding company for harm reduction. I mean, it needs, you know, it just needs its own line of clothing. Need young people. That's my idea. Y'all was all witness to this. I mean, I'm saying we need a whole. There's a lot of t-shirts out there, mugs or whatever. But I'm serious. It needs to be a line of clothing for harm reduction. We need some different kind of, like, you know, some stuff. We need some stuff. And we need to know more about that too. That's another part that we need to get into. Again, companies needs to be a place to share this information, because a lot of times that financial currency and support goes a long way to folks who would give back if we can get them in position to give back, to get things done. And again, teaching the give back. We got to get better at that too. Teaching the give back. Financial give back.
Yeah.
I'm looking for harm reduction t-shirts online right now. There are some good ones. I haven't found one that says I Narcan can you. That's a good one, but there are some good ones online.
I'm going to have my granddaughter make some more of those, so I'll put it on our website when we get them.
All right.
Yeah, my granddaughter makes, she does our cups for us and our t-shirts. So I'm going to have her make some of those because we ran out. And once we get those done, we'll put them on our website and you can order one. Yeah.
Oh, most definitely, because
Yeah.
I love a good t-shirt. I love a good hat. Like I said in the chat, I will wear a harm reduction crop top in any weather. It's cold and I got on 2 sweaters, but the crop top will be on.
We need some tennis shoes, yo. I want to work with somebody on some tennis shoes. Who we got? Come on, who we got? I want some tennis shoes. I don't even wear tennis shoes like that, but I want to design some. I'm serious. We got to get it out there. What we need to do. I'm talking mobile tour, concerts. I'm with you. Design some t-shirts, design some clothes. We need some suits, some harm reduction suits, some fresh ones. This is pretty harm reduction on front. Let's do this. Let's make it happen, y'all. Come on. We ain't scared. We don't come too far to be scared. We ain't got nothing to lose.
I'm absolutely here for it. So I think a great idea is when anyone starts making any harm reduction swag, feel free to share it with us, and we will be supporting the community by making these purchases. I will have to make several purchases. And so I've got one final question, and then that will be it for me. And if anyone else has any questions, they can feel free to chime in. So I have to read this one verbatim because it's a long question. So I hope y'all are ready. Okay. So the miracle question is often used in therapeutic spaces to help clients create a goal for where they want to be. It offers a question: if you woke up tomorrow and everything you needed to do, if you woke up tomorrow and had everything you needed to do what you wanted, what would your day look like? So my question is, if you woke up tomorrow and had everything you needed to successfully incorporate harm reduction into any Black community space, what would your day look like?
I've thought about this one. I'm not gonna hit all the marks, but I'm gonna hit a good day. I would wake up with unlimited amount of money. It would be a whole housing complex that people could come, whole families could get treatment, counseling. It would provide lodging, it would provide training for jobs. Man, I'd be giving out cars like Oprah. We'd have a transit system that completely ran 24/7, where people could access services. We'd be on tour. I'm trying to tell you, we'd be on, man, they ain't seen nothing like the harm reduction tour. I'm telling you, better get it. It's coming to a city near you. Don't sleep on us. Because it's gonna be, it's gonna be a stone cold gas. We're gonna all be there. And it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be real fun. Something for everybody. But I think that would be it. And we could, like I said, the transportation, the housing, getting people the services, the stability that they needed, the medical care that they would need, the counseling for whole families. And we'd have some other things in place in communities. I'd be able to go into communities and actually create community centers that serve the community, not just basketball and football. We'd be doing tennis, we'd be doing soccer, you know what I'm saying? Everything would be nice and green and plush, and it'd just be a wonderful place. And we'd all get along too.
Yeah.
Don't mean we can't disagree, for us to fight, but we'd all get along. Everybody would just be like, oh, happy, and be coffee and iced coffee and tea for everybody.
Yeah. And I guess I have to, I go along with that because I remember when I was growing up and where the community was together. And when something went wrong, the community fixed it. The community took care of it. And having all these, harm reduction services, apartment complex, all the services they need, everything right there for them. So they don't have to, run all over town, worry about public transportation or anything like that. Everything is right there. And even a safe injection site, have that in there, and it, just let people know that you live here, do what you're going to do. Let's keep everybody safe. Let's keep the place clean. Let's look out for each other and, do that. Be the village that helps everyone and looks out for everyone. And, your problems are lessened. And that's, if I could wake up and have that, then, I wouldn't have to worry about work. I'd have to find something else to do. Yeah, because I mean, that's what our participants want. They want something safe. They want to be safe doing whatever they're doing. They don't want the stigma, you know, they want some understanding, they want some love, and we have to be the ones that give them, to lessen that stigma, give them the understanding that they need and want, and show them the love that they need.
One thing I really enjoy about that question is that it helps highlight things that sometimes go unaddressed, like transportation, housing, safe and stable housing, stable with it, job security that actually pays you well. And then it also touches on those things that aren't necessarily material, like having love and support from a community, and understanding that when you have the community, when you have that village, it's more than just, oh, it looks pretty on the outside, it's a nice little Hallmark setup. It's actually people who are invested in one another, and in seeing not just the whole of the community grow, but individuals as well, and understanding that we all contribute to that. So thank you both so much for sitting with me in this space and having these conversations, and giving me some advice on how I can better engage harm reduction as a young Black man, and how much our community needs it. Okay, stop it first. Oh, wow, my sweater is shedding. But yeah, thank you.
Your scarf. Don't waste it. It can be used.
I don't know how to knit, so we'll just.
It'd be all right. We got some glue, some tape. It'd be all right. Just pile it up.
It'll get fixed.
We'll make it work.
I'll just ship it to you. Thank you for that. But yes, thank you both so much again. I really appreciated you both taking the time to, especially in your really busy day and your really busy schedule, to come and talk about this. And best of luck, Mr. Donald, with your transition and moving back closer to home. I hope you have a safe trip and a very smooth transition. I know it's probably not super smooth, but
this is on your next chapter.
Yeah, you know, well, some people have asked, think I'm retiring, and I have to tell them, no, I'm just relocating. Mm-hmm. I'm relocating and I'm going back to where I started, and see what I can do there. See what trouble I can get into there, you know?
Good trouble.
Yes.
That's great. Trouble. Look, that's great. And like I said, you know, we can be a help or whatever, and again, thank you to the organization. Thank you to each one on the call for this opportunity. There's no place I'd, rather be at this time than hanging out with family.
Yes. Thank y'all so much. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Donald. Thank you, Deshay. Excellent, excellent job, and an excellent conversation that could have gone on for longer, for sure. So definitely stay tuned. We'll be definitely bringing this topic back. And if folks aren't traveling, maybe we'll have some folks join us that weren't able to make it today. So definitely stay tuned for that on our social media. We'll probably share that soon. But I just wanted to thank y'all for joining us for day one. I just wanted to send a quick reminder out to folks that tomorrow's start time for in-person attendees will be at 8 o'clock, and that's when registration opens. And that'll happen between 8 and 9. And then the first official plenary for both in-person and virtual attendees will start at 9. But of course, we know that that's early. So it may start at 9:05, and of course, the whole tech issue. So, be gracious with us, but that's the start time. And of course, that's what we'll do, and we'll just play it by ear. But I just want to thank y'all again for attending. If you're going to be here in person, don't forget, we have 2 in-person events tonight. The welcome reception at 5:30 to 7:30, free drinks, free food, and then the ballroom fashion show that's happening, which I am ready for a night out. So if y'all are in town, definitely hit us up, and don't have too much fun because we do have to make it to the conference tomorrow. So I just wanted to say thank y'all again, and I hope y'all enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.